The vast majority of education you see when it comes to real estate is all about getting into the house or maintaining the house. But what is so often overlooked is someday when you pass on, what happens to those assets? And if you don't have a will, it's going to wreak havoc on your family. So you may be sitting here thinking, what the heck does a will have to do with real estate? Well, let me tell you, upon the passing of you or your loved ones, it's going to make all the difference in the world of what you've got to deal with in the aftermath. So let's start with defining. What is a will? A will, simply defined, is a legal document that outlines how a person's assets and property will be distributed upon their death. They say in life only two things are guaranteed: death and taxes. It can be kind of an odd subject to discuss, but we know it's going to happen. It's inevitable. So it's really amazing to me how many people kind of put it off to the side. But what I've seen in my own family with grandparents and aging relatives is how complicated things can be if you don't have everything lined up. And by having a will, it makes sure that all of your assets are distributed the way you want. Otherwise, it gets left up to the state. A will is also a way to help avoid family disputes, especially when people are grieving and emotions are high. A will spells everything out and makes a tough time a little bit easier. If you're a parent, a will is so important because if you have children and God forbid something happens to you, you want to be able to designate who is going to be in charge of the care for your children. I have two precious girls, and if it was left up to the state, I would never forgive myself. And ultimately, the probate process of dividing your assets or selling things off is made much quicker with a will and a lot cheaper. Your family members aren't having to bear the brunt of attorney's costs trying to figure everything out. There are still some costs associated and there is still a timeline, but it's infinitely faster and less complicated if you've done your due diligence now and spelled out how you want things to go. And once you write up your will, it's not a one and done type of thing. You want to go back periodically and update it. If you've purchased a new property or if you've had more children, you want to make sure that everything is detailed so that if anything terrible happens, everything is ready to go. If you're married, have siblings, have kids, have other family members, someday when you pass on, they're going to be grieving your loss. And a wonderful gift that you can provide them upon your death is to make sure that the paperwork is handled and that your wishes are spelled out clearly. I work with customers all the time who are dealing with death, and it's so difficult, and it can be made even more difficult when they're trying to sort through assets, real estate, other family members. Take the time to put your will in place, and you can hire an attorney to do it. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more economical, a website like LegalZoom can be a phenomenal start. Just get something on paper. But remember, make sure it's in a spot where people can find it, or let your loved ones know that should you pass, this is who they need to contact. And if this is something you've never had to deal with, let me share some stories from my career, because I have worked with families who've lost a parent, who've lost a sibling. And when you have a will in place, there's an attorney that's assigned, and the process is pretty detailed just in terms of what the next steps are. However, I've also dealt with people who, upon the untimely death of a family member, had nowhere to go. And what can happen is people might assume that everybody's going to play fair, but if one sibling decides they lay claim over this property or they don't want to split it, it goes into a legal battle that can take months and sometimes years, and at worst case can actually deplete all the funds from the estate so that by the time you're done arguing, there's nothing left. So take an afternoon, take an hour, go on a website, call an attorney, and put your will into place. I want to make sure that you leave a legacy for your family, not a workload. And remember, real estate is one of the best ways to pass on generational wealth to your loved ones. I'm Lindsey Johnson, your resource for all things real estate. See you next time.